Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on Monday's episode of True Potential's Morning Markets. In this video, we would like to look at what's coming in the week ahead in terms of data points and financial news. This coming week, European markets are closed on Friday and also next Monday for Easter break. So some of the European data that we get this week is somewhat limited. However, markets within the US and Asia will be open during this period. So to begin with, if we think about what will be most significant for markets, that will be the number of speeches that we are getting from central bankers. So that's going from the US, Europe, and also the UK. So within the US, we have a number of the FOMC members, as well as the Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaking. Within Europe, we have ECB President Christine Lagarde, and in the UK, we have Chief Economist Catherine Mann, all making comments around the economic backdrop. So that will cover things like economic growth and inflation, and as well as comments made on monetary policy. So financial markets will be particularly keen to see those comments and to understand how that impacts the pricing of assets. So if we think about what's coming in terms of data points, and starting within Asia, Japan is the main place where we're seeing data points this coming week. And the main one to focus on is the Bank of Japan meeting minutes. As we know from last week's videos, the Bank of Japan changed its monetary policy. So they had been using negative interest rates. They've now changed that to be positive. So those meeting minutes will provide investors with a greater level of detail or insight into the conversations that were happening during that meeting, and will provide them with potential insights into how the Bank of Japan is thinking about the next changes that it looks to make in monetary policy. Moving closer to home within Europe, we have a number of inflation prints coming out. So that's from the likes of France, Italy, and also Spain. And the broad comments that we can make around market expectations is that they're still expecting that theme of disinflation to play out. So that's where we see the rate of inflation continuing to slow. And that will be seen as a positive by the European Central Bank, that the fact that it's raised interest rates is starting to play through in reducing the rate of inflation that we're seeing within these economies. So broadly, still expecting disinflation to persist within Europe. Closer to home in the UK, we're expecting GDP figures. Now, the market is expecting that that number is negative 0.2, so a marginal contraction in GDP growth. However, that is a lot better outcome than what was priced at the start of the year in 2023. So although negative, that rate of change is much positive to what was initially anticipated at the start of the year, due to the high rate of inflation and also high interest rates from the Bank of England. But finally, where markets will be most focused this week is within the US, and there's two main data points to cover there. We have PCE inflation and also the GDP data. So starting with PCE inflation, PCE is just what the Fed preferred inflation measure is, and what we're expecting to see is that those rates are going to remain, or what the market's expecting is that those rates will remain as they were last month. So that's 2.4 for headline inflation and 2.8 for core inflation. We know from the Federal Reserve's last meeting that they expect core PCE to fall to 2.6% by year end. So we're only 0.2% off their forecast for year end. So inflation's still moving in the right direction in the US, but we're starting to hit a point where inflation's becoming a little more sticky, and that rate of change is starting to slow, but still on track to hit the Federal Reserve's target. Turning to the GDP figures, that's for the final quarter of last year, and those numbers are expected to be 4.9%. So continuing to see the theme of robust economic growth within the US. So that's what's coming up this week. Continue to watch the videos throughout the week for updates on those data points.